The grieving family of tragic toddler Star Hobson say that they're ready to welcome her mother back home, 3 years after her girlfriend brutally killed 16-month-old Star Hobson. Little Star bled to death after being kicked or punched by scumbag banshee Savannah Brockhill. Star was kicked with massive force at their home in Keighley, West Yorkshire. This happened in September 2020. The mother's girlfriend, Savannah Brockhill, was a nightclub bouncer, 30 years of age. She was jailed for a minimum of 25 years after being given a mandatory life sentence for murdering the defenseless toddler in a fit of temper. Star Hobson's mother, her name Frankie Smith, 22 years of age, was jailed for 8 years for causing or allowing the death. So the mother, Frankie Smith, stood by during the entire relationship that she had with Savannah Brockhill, in which Savannah Brockhill routinely beat 16-month-old Star Hobson to the point that she succumbed to those injuries in September 2020. The mother did sweet F.A. nothing. She was jailed for 8 years. There was a public outrage, rightfully so, and her sentence was increased, I believe, to 12 years. But in England, if you're a child murderer, especially if you're a woman, a vagina bearer, your sentence is meaningless. Frankie Smith is still entitled to parole, so she stood by whilst her girlfriend literally beat her 16-month-old daughter, Star Hobson, to death, but she's going to get parole approximately halfway through her jail sentence. So again, she was initially jailed for 8 years. That was extended, I believe, to 12 years, and she'll be eligible for parole at the halfway mark, so after 6 years. And this article is telling us that certain members of Frankie Smith's family, notably her great-grandfather, his name David Fawcett, is looking forward to the time that Frankie Smith, the mother that stood by whilst 16-month-old Star Hobson was beaten to death, the family members, some of them, are looking forward to when Frankie Smith returns home, when she is released from jail. So the great-grandfather, David Fawcett, says that the mother, Frankie Smith, is devastated of the fact that her child, Star Hobson, was killed. The great-grandfather misses the time that he spent with Star Hobson's mother. He used to enjoy their relationship. He used to enjoy the time that they would speak. He still visits Frankie Smith regularly, and he's ready to welcome her back home as and when she's released, as I say, likely at the halfway mark of her 12-year sentence. So Frankie Smith, the mother's defense lawyers, argued that Frankie Smith was herself a victim, that she was beaten by her own girlfriend, Savannah Brockhill, and that Frankie Smith wasn't very intelligent. She has an IQ of around 70, so I think that would classify her as being a slow learner, perhaps functionally retarded. I don't use that in a derogatory sense, of course. So the great-grandfather, and I believe other members of the family, feel sorry for the mother, Frankie Smith. They forgive her to an extent. They view the mother as being a victim herself, and they see that she's remorseful. So I'm going to comment on that. I'm going to say that I've seen situations like this before where family members of a victim that's been murdered have forgiven the murderer concerned. And that's always sat very badly with me. I find it unsettling. I don't understand it. Why forgive somebody who has committed such a heinous act? Why? I don't get it. I don't feel that I would try to forgive anybody who commits a heinous act like this. Frankie Smith, even if she was a victim, even if she does have low IQ, she still stood by whilst her baby daughter was ritually abused by her girlfriend. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. She's absolutely guilty. She should be sentenced to life in prison, if you ask me. I would not forgive her personally. But at the same time, I'm not going to blame the great-grandfather for his forgiveness. I'm not going to blame him. I feel sorry for him. I feel that he's a man who has lost his great-grandchild and is deeply saddened by that, and he feels that he's also lost his granddaughter, and he's hurting, and he's trying to process this in a way that suits him, that suits his beliefs, his life views, his religion perhaps. He's trying to navigate through life as best he can, and this is a path which perhaps seems natural to him or seems his best hope, to holding on to sanity, to holding on to some form of happiness, hopefully. So I don't blame this guy at all. His forgiveness has given myself an opportunity to reflect on my unwillingness to forgive. I don't think I would change my mind in regards to being unforgiving of severe, heinous acts, but that's me. And this is a guy who seemingly is a very loving person, loved his great-granddaughter, Star Hobson, loved his granddaughter, the mother of Star Hobson, Frankie Smith. He didn't want this to happen. He would have done anything to stop this from happening. And I would think that this tragedy has shaken him to the core, and this is how he's coping. He's hoping things will go back to some remnants of how they were before, some remnants of normality. It pains him, I would say, when he considers this whole tragedy. Maybe a psychologist would be able to say the great-grandfather is right to have his approach. Maybe a psychologist would say the great-grandfather is wrong to have his approach. Maybe he's in denial. Maybe he's failing to accept and absorb the evil that his daughter displayed. He's chosen to overlook that and only blame his granddaughter's girlfriend. So maybe he's in the wrong, but I don't feel that I'm in a position to judge that. And even if he is in the so-called wrong, I don't think that makes him a bad person. I don't think he is a bad person. I think he's a family member who's been touched by an absolute tragedy. And I think this serves as an example of how hurt family members are. David Fawcett is Star Hobson's great-grandfather. So these issues touch, affect, destroy the happiness, warp the mindset of so many people, family members, friends, even neighbors. You know, it's just too shocking, which is why I don't think an 8-year sentence extended to 12 years with the ability to get parole at around the halfway mark, that's not acceptable. I suspect that when murderers and such are given extremely long sentences, life or 25 years in jail or such, I think that's going to go a lot further to help soothe the mindset of family and friends of victims. They're not going to be as angered as they would be if they knew that the perpetrator, the murderer of their loved one, was going to be released after a short period of time. It's going to be a lot harder to let go if the family and friends of the victim feel that the perpetrator isn't being justly punished. They're going to harbor anger, and it's going to continue to eat away at their lives, at their happiness. That's one of the reasons why we have long sentences, to ease the mind of those touched by the tragedy. And it's not limited to family and friends. It includes wider society. When I stop and consider these subjects, these murders at length, I get angry, I get rageful, and I'll say depresses me. It becomes too much mentally. So I'm quite good at not allowing myself to do that. The Star Hobson case was one of the first ones that I covered when I started this channel, and it was one of those which did touch me in particular. There's been about half a dozen, several of which have come from the United Kingdom, and if you allow yourself to reflect too much on them, it can bring you down. So that's why I do encourage listeners not to listen to all of my videos. If you do feel down, step away, do something else, watch some kitten videos, whatever it happens to be. Feel free to unsubscribe. I don't want you to. I'm looking to have a thriving YouTube channel, but we have to protect our mental health. So, to reiterate, if you feel down, step away. And I think I'm going to wrap up the article at this point. We see some of the photos. I've not posted some photos which show bruising on Star. I've not shown those photos because some may find it disturbing, and also YouTube could get a little bit angry about that. But there are photos on the Daily Mail article that I've gone through. Star's entire face, her cheek, is covered in bruises. She's got a black eye. And with that, I could never forgive either the mother's girlfriend, Savannah Brockhill, or the mother herself. She stood by, let it happen. Even though she was perhaps a victim herself, doesn't matter. She still should have acted. Even though she's got a low IQ, doesn't matter. She still should have acted. If she's able to determine right from wrong, then she should have acted. So I'm going to wrap things up at this point. Full condolences to the family and friends of Star Hobson. I'm going to say with particular note to the great-grandfather who was discussed in this article, David Fawcett. To me, he seems like a loving man who's very hurt. Lost springs to mind. I wish him the best. I don't agree with his forgiveness, or rather, his forgiveness wouldn't work for me. But if it works for him, then I guess I'm glad. If he's able to get some kind of peace in his mindset, then I am glad. So I'm going to wrap things up at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. Feel free to drop me a comment. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree with me. Either way is fine, but I'm going to thank you for your time, and I'll move on to the next article.